You're listening to the Black Eagles podcast with Sinan Schwarting and Kaan Bayazit.
Ahmet Dursun Sergen aldı. Sergen Bülent yan yana. Sergen Bülent. Sergen. Yanında Tümer var. Tümer'e doğru aksiyon kaybetti. Tümer topu aldı. Sergen aldı. Gol! Gol! Gol! Sergen attı. Sergen attı. Şampiyonluk geldi. Sergen attı. Şampiyonluk geldi.
İbrahim'in pası. Roma. Şimdi Ahmet. İkinci gole gidiyor Beşiktaş. Ahmet. Ve
Sure, go ahead.
Welcome back, everybody. Episode 24, and we come bearing gifts. The gift, of course, being the good news that we have just completed our match. But before we get into it, I'm Sinan Schwarting, live from New York City, and of course, your co-host, Kaan Bayazit. What do you say there, boss?
It's the season to be jolly, la la la la la la la. You're a little early with that, Sinan.
Yeah, we're coming in early with the gifts. What are you going to say? Or rather, Beşiktaş is. Great victory, huh? What do you think about?
Solid win tonight, 3-0 against Partizan. Did what I think many of us kind of expected us to do on Sunday as well against Antalyaspor. Luck. I think today we controlled the game and we got the deserved win without showboating too much. 2 goals on set pieces has to be said, has to be pointed out. Yeah. Some good football at times, but still not what we need. And we're still, we've now officially entered the final 24 hours of the transfer market as we are recording this. And still no sign of a number 10. So, yes, we come bearing gifts in regards to good news to this match, and Beşiktaş are true to the Europa League.
Group stage proper.
Group stages, exactly. But unfortunately, no good news on the transfer front yet.
Yes, yeah, and this is becoming maybe a bigger problem than whether or not we'd get into the group stage of the Europa League, honestly. But
yeah. And of course, tomorrow the draw as well for the Europa League group stages takes place. Beşiktaş are in pot 1. Also, 2 other Turkish teams are in the draws: Akhisar and Fenerbahçe. Fenerbahçe are in pot 2 and Akhisar are in pot 4, just in case you wanted to know.
And if you're confused because you thought Fenerbahçe was in the Champions League, they are not any longer, right? They just went out in the qualifying round, so that's why they're joining us in the group stage here.
Yeah, they went out against Benfica, of course. Yeah.
Let's get to business. Tell us about this match. Give us the rundown. Okay,
so the match started pretty slow, in my opinion. Beşiktaş started with a conservative lineup, similar to the one from last week in Partizan, with no Jermaine Lens, no Ryan Babel, no Oğuzhan Özyakup, again the Gary Medel tall guy, Necip midfield, Caner on left wing instead of Babel, who was on the bench for 90 minutes, Quaresma on the right side, Kyle Larin up top, no Alvaro Negredo, who was also on the bench for 90 minutes. I guess you could say rotation, perhaps, from Şenol Güneş. But Beşiktaş starting with a relatively defensive-minded, or at least on paper, lineup. I felt personally that we saw that in the play early on, but when Necip got subbed off midway through the first half following an injury, he had collided with Ljajic from Partizan, who used to play for Gesterbeli the past 2 seasons. They collided in a headed aerial duel, and Necip had to be subbed off after about 5 or so minutes after that collision. Yeah. And Ljajic had to get treatment. Had to get patched up
multiple
times. 3 times in the first half, which also led to 5 minutes of extra time to the first half. Beşiktaş opened.
It looked like a very brutal bit of contact there between those guys, and I think you kind of have to put the onus of it on. What was his name? Was it Zakaric?
Ljajic was it?
Ljajic, yeah.
Was Ljajic. I think they were just going for the ball, both of them.
He's the one who came in a little late with his head, and Necip even looked sort of stunned after it happened, like, why did that just happen? What the hell was that? But it was just brutal. I mean, in terms of it looked like it was probably very painful, and I'm sure they're both concussed.
Yeah, I was going to say, we were talking about concussions in our Loris Karius episode, and I was just going to say that the first thing I thought after that was like, I hope Ljajic isn't concussed after that.
And he did have that howler. He had a great chance shortly thereafter, which he missed essentially. So it's not out of the realm of possibility.
Well, yeah. But it took Beşiktaş until the 37th minute. At that point already, before they opened the scoreline, at that point I really had the feeling that Partizan were trying to do kind of an Antalyaspor and trying to get the tempo out of the match, laying down a lot, wasting time, stuff like that. And it's kind of ironic really that they conceded on a free kick, which was brilliantly communicated between Quaresma and Pepe. You could see it. They showed it on the replay afterwards, after the match. Actually on Smart Sport, they just showed that they were actually talking to each other, and you could see that they knew exactly what they were doing. Quaresma lofts the ball into the box. Pepe runs free, nobody marking him, and he heads it home brilliantly. 1-0 after 37 minutes, and that's kind of that Beşiktaş needed that goal, but it didn't really change all that much for Partizan because they had to score regardless of whether Beşiktaş would score. So this didn't really change it all that much. But Oğuzhan, who had come in for Ljajic during the 27th minute, I believe, or something thereabouts, he changed the game a little bit. Beşiktaş started playing more through the middle, less so long balls, which we were doing a lot in the opening 20 minutes, I felt. More center play, and Oğuzhan brilliantly set up the 2-0 for himself, really. He came in from the middle, played it into Kyle Lauren, who actually did a really good deviation on the ball. And again, Oğuzhan finds himself one-on-one with the goalkeeper and just slots it home in the first minute of first half stoppage time, of 5 minutes added on, and 2-0 at halftime. Great scoreline for Beşiktaş, and I think Partizan responded well coming out of the dressing room. They really went for it for I think 5, 6, 7 minutes, but you could tell that Beşiktaş were regaining control of the match, and Beşiktaş scored a third goal in the 69th minute, again on a free kick from Ricardo Quaresma. Pepe once again, it's his 4th goal this season already. He's got 2 in the league, 2 in Europe now, and he becomes Beşiktaş's top scorer with that, I believe. Yeah, he does, because Kyle Lauren had 3 against Torshavn, but he hasn't scored any other goals. And that was the final score. And I think Beşiktaş, if they wanted, they could have made it 4. But they really stopped trying. And something I liked was that Beşiktaş were trying for that third goal. Something I felt was needed, because Partizan scoring a goal could really make the final few minutes very nervous for us if it stayed 2-0. But we went for that third goal. We got it. Pepe again. And after that, Partizan, they knew it was over. We knew it was over, so we basically just controlled the game and ended it. So the final score reads Beşiktaş 3, Partizan 0, and Beşiktaş advanced to the Europa League group stages.
Yeah, and the final aggregate being 4-1. Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great summary of what happened. There's not much controversy in this match. It was a fairly straightforward affair. Partizan again came in. I thought they were playing a little bit dirty, but maybe not as bad as in the first match. I think they clearly had a lot more to play for.
Ref was lenient again, I have to agree. I didn't think this referee was very good either. Same as the first match, really. I don't know, seemed to allow a lot.
Lots of minor contact, and the thing about that is that kind of contact always escalates. Once you're allowed to do that, then it's kind of like, okay, well then what qualifies as a foul becomes the next level, and the next level is things where potentially people can get injured. It's not what you want. Happening. It
took over 40 minutes before they got a card. They got a card in the 42nd minute, and I think they ended the match with like 23 falls. And that's falls that got called.
Exactly.
There were a couple that didn't get called,
especially in the first half.
Especially early on, especially. But, so be it. I think referees in Europe always try to be a little bit more lenient. That's something I've noticed, but sometimes that ends up, actually in Turkey it happens a lot too. We could say, which was the Antalya game on Sunday, refs like that also, they quote unquote are lenient to let the game flow, but by doing so, they do the exact opposite because they just allow the opponent to get the tempo completely out of the match by wasting time, by making fouls, stuff like that. That wasn't so bad here, but at 0-0, it started to, Stojkovic, Partizan's goalkeeper, he was already wasting time.
Yeah.
I think they kind of their game plan probably kind of revolved around making sure Beşiktaş didn't score and then trying to hit them like that one. They probably had this attitude of, we'll get our chance. That chance will come. We just have to prevent them from scoring. And I think once we scored, it kind of took the wind out of their sails.
Yeah, I think that's about right. I mean, we definitely played our brand of football way more than we could in the previous match, and even before they could score against us in the last match, I thought we were playing more calm. We're still clearly finding our footing, and we've said this so many times before, but we're missing some clear holes in the lineup. But nonetheless, we're sort of finding our footing, and obviously not consistently, and that's going to be a problem when you have the holes that we do, which we hope get rectified literally probably before this even gets published, but we'll see. But in the end, it was a 3-0 victory in Europe, got us through, got the job done, put all of our nerves. I think a lot of us were on edge about this, just given the general form of the club and all of the stuff swirling around it. Ozan sort of summed it up, speaking of some of that controversy, by I think responding to the crowd when he scored his goal, sticking his fingers in his ears. I think that got a mixed reception online, as you'd expect. But for me, he earned that because it was a nice goal, put together. Credit to Laren too for the sort of 1-2 at the touch. But yeah, I thought
did it twice in the second half too with Gökhan at the
Gökhan
end
sort
there.
of blew, but yeah, exactly. Laren showed a lot of energy, and his ability to bring the ball down on his chest is actually, like, if we were looking for something he can do better than a lot of others, that was actually somewhat impressive, to be honest. But that's not enough to make him a starting
that
striker
pales
for
in comparison.
Beşiktaş.
That one good control or something that pales in comparison to all the aerials he lost. And I thought he played a fairly good game today. I mean, he had those two good 1-2s, one with Ozan, one with Gökhan, and he worked hard and he definitely did his part. But almost every high ball, he just doesn't even come close to winning it. It's like he's totally in the defender's pocket.
Yeah, you mean headers on goal? They don't happen. Yeah.
No, not just that. Just also, if we play a long ball from the back, if the goal, if Utku kicks it upfield, whatever, when he has to win that header. I mean, he won a couple, but the majority of headers, he just really comes up short on those. And he is a striker with a certain physical presence, and I expect so much more from him. And I'm starting to understand what Channel said at the start of the season, that his heading isn't good. And I wouldn't say it's not really his heading. I'd say it's the timing of his jumps that's just really off right now. And not just the timing of his jumps, but every time I feel when a cross comes into the box, and a cross that is realistic for him to get, I always feel like he doesn't believe in it, that he doesn't have the confidence that he's going to get to that ball. And I don't have any confidence in him either, honestly. From that,
he made that one attempt where it came in low and kind of behind he and the defender, and the defender kind of just like plopped down, thinking, okay, if I just sort of drop here, he can't get around me. But then he kind of, did you notice that he like kind of twisted up and over on the ground and like missed? But so there was some intent on his part that was lacking, I thought, in previous matches. But again, yeah, maybe not quite the technique required.
I think the assist in the first half gave him confidence. I thought the second half was better than his
Oh
first.
yeah.
And I think that definitely just goes to show you that maybe if he can get that goal in against an opponent of note, you know, and it's an important, you know, not like a 3 or 4-0, but like a 2-0 or an opener or something like that. Maybe that could get him started.
Yeah, for sure.
But at this point, for me, he needs to play. He needs to get confidence. He needs to get goals, and he's not going to get that at Beşiktaş. I think.
Yeah, not at this
he needs
rate.
to go out on loan, and it's probably too late now. But he needs to go out on loan, in my opinion. And if not now, in January, hopefully. I honestly don't think that Umut Nair can't do what Laren's doing right now.
Yeah, who knows? But I think there's not much that he is doing. Oh, although again, like I don't want to diminish that today was, I thought, a market improvement on his part.
Yeah, this was one of his better performances for sure.
But then, so beyond that, let's just cut right into it. Let's get into our highs and lows. My highlight would not go to Kyle Laren. I mean, that was promising on his part, perhaps, if one was looking to him to improve. But I'm gonna go with. I think a character that most of the fans in the stadium would agree with me on, Gary Medel. He was an engine all day. He gave solidity and consistency and confidence. Of course, he had that one play of note where he was just so tenacious, and I think he won the ball 2 or 3 times, and in a very quick little pinball type of moment. But he earned the ovations of the crowd for that, and then when he got taken off late in the match, he also, the crowd seemed very supportive of him, and I thought that was merited. I thought today was one of those days where a guy like Gary Medel, and you could see he was just putting it all on the pitch. It really gave me the feeling that he could grow into a kind of club legend, and in much the way that I think we've felt about Atiba Hutchinson in years prior.
I still feel like that with him, man.
Of course.
Atiba for the win.
No. I mean, I said we have, right? And present perfect.
But it's definitely different,
that. Yeah,
because Medel shows such a different player.
He's an engine.
He's so tenacious, and I don't think that Atiba was always a calm, composed player. Medel is a fiery volcano, and it can burst at any moment. But at the same time, that's what the fans love about him. Just that he loses the ball, and he's like, "No, I'm not. This is my ball, my ball."
He has a kind of like brute, almost just like, no, not today, sir. I love it.
He's played a good amount of games like that, especially at home. Usually, he's very, very much like that. Against Antalyaspor, I guess we kind of lacked that from him, perhaps. But I don't know if we can blame him. We shouldn't blame him, obviously. But yeah, the fans clearly they absolutely adore and love Medel, and stuff like that makes me a little bit sad that he came
sort of later,
so late in his career. When he was already like 29, 30. I guess he just turned 30 when we got him. Now he just turned 31, and it just makes me a little bit sad that we didn't get him a couple of years earlier. For him to truly establish himself as a legend down the road, similar to Atiba.
Right.
I mean, he came when he was, I guess, 29, turning 30. It's
He could have the same arc.
Let's say.
But let's see, yeah. But I also want to, before I hand it over to you, I want to give an honorable mention to the guy who he subbed out for, who was Dorokan Tokos, who just made his international, or I should say European debut tonight. Unless maybe he actually played against Torshavn. But anyway, I'd like to tip my cap to him, because I've meant to pay attention to him when he's come in the sort of preseason friendlies we saw him in, or whatever it was. And I never quite, he never really stood out. He's in a position, of course, where, you have to kind of make a mistake to stand out often. But so maybe it was good. But today, I really saw something in him. And granted, he came in against a winded Partizan who had all but lost already. They were down, I think, already 3-0 by then. Yeah, they were. But he looked solid. He had one very nice pass upfield to, I think it was to Jane, that showed a lot of promise in his ability to kind of move the ball forward from behind, as a sort of deep lying midfielder. So yeah, shout out to Durkan for that, and hopefully we'll see more in the matches to come. But so on that note, Kaan, what do you think? Who's your highlight?
Well, you know what? I have to be honest. I've been wanting to say this for a while, but I have been keeping it to myself because I didn't want to be the guy that's like, oh my god, he scored and he's great. No, Pepe, but not because he scored, and not because
twice.
not because of that, not because he scored today, not because he scored on Sunday against Antalya, and 2 weeks ago against who did we open against? Who was it? Who do we open? I already don't recall who we opened against.
Not Erzurum, right?
No, the home game.
Akhisar,
right. So I've kind of been holding this to myself, but we've criticized the defense lately because we've let in goals that we shouldn't be letting in. But honestly, I see a different Pepe than I saw last season, and people criticized him for playing amazing in the Champions League but not doing so great in the league. And I thought he was fine in the league. I thought he wasn't special, but he did his job. He was fine. But this year, I feel like he is out for revenge or something. Like he's out to prove something in the league as well. And he's got this fire in him. And when I look at the players that are currently being played, and I look on the pitch, and I look towards who's wearing that captain's armband, I don't think there's anyone more deserving on that pitch than Pepe. And the problem with that is, can you make a player who's on an expiring deal, who is by no means super likely to be extending because he is on super high wages, he may want to go and cash in China or something. It's perfectly possible. You don't know.
Maybe he has some childhood youth club. Who knows?
Yeah, maybe he wants to go back to Brazil. Maybe he wants to go back to Porto. Maybe he wants to try his luck in the Premier League. He can do all of that still. So Pepe is at a point in his career. He's going to turn 36 soon. To me, this Pepe, he can still go. He can go for at least 2 more years, I think, unless bar any knock on wood. Bar any injury, this guy can still go for at least 2 years, maybe more. And to me, I would, people are talking constantly about Beşiktaş need to do a youth movement. There need to be new players added to the team, younger players, blah, blah, blah. But you also need experience and you need a good leader. And I don't see anyone better than Pepe. And to me, I would really love to see us extend Pepe's contract by 2 years and give him that armband. I think he deserves it so badly. And he's just, I think for us, even at this age, I think he can become an icon and a kind of, if you look at our squad, Pepe is by far the most respected, the most known player across the world. Respected maybe depends on who you ask, but he's just such a brand. Quaresma is a brand too, but Pepe is on a different level because Quaresma is a brand and people love him and football fans across the world love his style, love him as a player. But Pepe has been successful at arguably the biggest club in the world for 10 years. I don't know. For me today, again, he was great. I think that he's been great. He's been one of the few guys on the team that I think has been consistently good so far this season. And what I also liked against Antalya, when we went down, he took responsibility. He ran up the pitch with the ball and he started to light a fire under his fellow players. And he's a central defender. He's 35 years old. And if you see the grinta that he shows and all of that, to me, Pepe, we should try and get him to stay. Hopefully, I mean, obviously, I don't think we can afford to extend him for the current, for his current contract values. But if he, has formed a sort of bond with the club and understands the position of the club and is willing to sacrifice some of his wages, I think that $3.5 million a year or something like that is still very much justified for him. If he would be willing to do that and extend for 2 years or so,
or even just another year, right?
Well, I think if you're going to make him captain, you need to bind him for at least 2 years, perhaps. But even if it's just a year, yeah, I think for me right now, he's just so deserving of that armband, and we don't really have someone that stands out as deserving of that armband right now, except for him, in my opinion.
I agree. I think let's see if we can make a nice little run in Europe. Now that we're there, and start to make a little noise. I think that tends to galvanize players, get them more, committed to the long term. So let's see. Yeah, that would be an interesting thing to try. At least I'm sure maybe they've already tried anyway. But anyway, yeah. Moving along, let's go to the lowlights, and I'll start. Boy, my lowlight today. It was one of those matches where nobody really did anything too poor that merits really getting called out. Utku looked good in the back. He made, I think, one save. He wasn't too active, so you certainly couldn't say he deserved anything negative. Our defense was solid. Finally, we kept a clean sheet. Vida looked good again, too, which I liked very much. I think he looked like he wanted to redeem himself after what he probably recognized was not his best match of his career against Antalya. But, maybe I would say that Gökhan Gönül was a little lacking today. Defensively, I thought he was okay. But in the attack, he showed some, he was a little off, I felt. His touch was off. His passes weren't very crisp. He actually did have one very nice cross towards the end of the match that wasn't finished. But for the most part, that was not the case. And we mentioned earlier, Larin gave him a nice pass that he sort of blew. And he often kind of miskicked the ball when he could have done something for us. Which, I say this because typically I think the criticism of his is very unjust. And I think people have a bone to pick because they think we need someone younger. There's a general feeling that many fans have towards older players these days, that they kind of have a desire to replace them because they want to decrease the average age of the squad in general.
I want to insert the Sinan trademark sigh for that, though.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, and
bugs me so badly.
That's why I never like picking on Gökhan Gönül. But today,
he was good.
It had nothing to do with his age. He just was sort of lacking on his touch, I thought, in terms of distributing.
I thought it was good.
His energy was good, and his defending was good. But again,
he had a couple of really good crosses too. I thought it was good actually today, but
maybe I'm looking for someone to call out because I don't think anyone stands out as being poor, honestly.
Yeah, I don't think there's anyone that deserves to be called out today. I think nobody lapsed in this match. I felt like, maybe my low points, Şenol Güneş.
Ah, yes, that's
the choice.
His first 11.
His first 11. It wasn't to me. I mean, I think that, Caner did the best he could, and he played for pretty long stretch on the right, even when midway through the first half, Quaresma and him switched wings, and Caner, I think it's been proven throughout his career. He started his career as a left winger, but I think it's been proven throughout his career that he isn't very effective when you play him as a left winger. He is great as a left back offensively. Defensively, he can be lacking, but offensively, he shines when he plays as a left back because he has more space to get his crosses in. There's a left winger that tends to drag his defender with him. It just, he is just so much better as a left back. And some people don't really understand that. They see Janner give all these crosses, get these assists, all that stuff, and they're like, oh my God, this guy is offensively so good. He should be playing left winger. But throughout his career, time and time again, it's been proven that when you play him as a left winger, he is far less effective. And I think you can see that here too. And I think in part that has also to do with the fact that when he's playing maybe if you play him as a traditional left winger, but he isn't the greatest at beating his man one-on-one, really. Just even as a traditional, type of Quaresma, which he's morphed into these days, David Beckham kind of Ryan Giggs winger. That's not really what he. It's not really what he's good at. I mean, as a left back, I like him a lot. As a left winger, he's lacking. For me, that lineup didn't really make a lot of sense. Yeah. Ultimately, we got to the result, but I think that
was despite the lineup, I think, right?
Yeah, but being forced to make that sub, taking Najib off due to an injury, that changed the match for me.
That's what
and I think that's So I mean, if we didn't get lucky, quote unquote,
and because of let's
that
never,
injury,
we don't feel good about what happened to Najib. That poor guy. I hope he's all right. He looked like he was in a lot of pain. But yes, but lucky tactically.
Yeah. I think that kind of saved him. I mean, probably, Partizan weren't really that good today, so we would probably won regardless. But I'm not so sure if it would have been as easy. I'm not sure if maybe we would have had to wait longer for that first goal, or we wouldn't have gotten the second or whatever. So I think, to me, Şenol Güneş today has to be if you have to look for something, I think this lineup wasn't good. I don't think we should ever play with Necip, Medel, and Tolgay.
Yeah.
Never.
And as bad, and as not even bad, as maybe subpar as Babel has been in his last couple of matches, to bench him in a match like this seemed a little bit odd. And I think the same thing goes for Negredo. I think the performances he's put in, fine, he was on a red in the last European match, but he's shown enough up front that if we're keeping him, and let's be clear again, with 24 hours to go, I think we're keeping him. He's probably earned that spot up there, and we could have used this maybe slightly weaker opponent like today's to keep that momentum going for him into the league, since we're going to clearly need someone up there to score goals for us. So, yeah, I think overall that's definitely an L for Şenol Güneş. But so that's it. That's our match review. Now, I think before we part with our viewers, perhaps you have a few things to say, Kaan, about what's in store for these next 24 hours?
Well, the latest right now, we're recording this, of course, just after the match. And the latest news came from Haber 1903. They just came out with this breaking news at the time, but obviously by the time you're listening to this, it obviously won't be anymore. So basically, what Haber 1903 has to say is Beşiktaş are still negotiating hard for ADEM Ljajic to get that deal done, but they're looking towards an alternative in case the deal doesn't get done. Obviously, there's only less than 24 hours left in the transfer window, and they're looking towards Sofiane Hanni, former Anderlecht player, former KV Mechelen player, also played briefly in Turkey, and he's been playing for, I believe, Spartak Moscow, I think, the past 2 years, but he hasn't played much there. Was a good player, was a really good player at Mechelen, was decent at Anderlecht, didn't really live up to the expectations. He had some really good moments there, but not consistently good enough. So, if you're going to go if that's your alternative to Ljajic, who's been one of the how should I put it? When you watch a league, like the entirety of a league, and of course, obviously you have the top teams. You have Galatasaray, Fenerbahçe, Beşiktaş in Turkey. You have Juventus. You have Napoli and Roma the last couple of years in Italy. Obviously, in the past, that was Inter and Milan and all that stuff as well, but those have dropped down a little bit. But then if you look at the somewhat smaller teams, like, for example, an Alanyaspor, where you have an Emre Agbaba, or in the past, Akhisar, where you had a phenomenal Rodallega, Bilal Kissa, Mehmet Topuz at Kayserispor. You know, the guys that add flavor to the league, that shine for those smaller clubs, really. ADEM Ljajic has kind of been that player the past couple of years in Italy for Torino. He's got some phenomenal statistics, I think. He's also, you know, both Inter and Roma took a chance on him. That speaks to his ability, to his talent. Obviously, he didn't cut it right there at the time. But Inter is a terribly tough team to cut it, I think, at. And so is Roma, especially before. They're coming up now. But you know, Ljajic, we've spoken about him a little bit before, but I think when we're talking about the level of a player that we want, you know, a marquee signing, Shinji Kagawa, ADEM Ljajic, I think those are marquee signings. I don't think Sofiane Hanni is a marquee signing. I think Sofiane Hanni is, I mean, his age is good. He's like 27, 28 years old, so that's not a huge thing, but he's flopped in Russia. Didn't flop at Anderlecht, did well, but not up to the expectations that you think. So that is non-marquee signing for me. That's a player that's probably going to struggle to adapt, because I think that's what also was a problem for him at Anderlecht, even despite the fact that he had been playing in Belgium for a couple of years already. Clearly, he's had some issues in Moscow. I don't know exactly what the issues were there. Obviously, if we do end up signing him, we'll have an expert on and to talk about why he didn't cut the mustard there. But that's not something that makes me happy, hearing those things. Then there's another thing that is also a rumor, a mild rumor I should put, but, you know, today kind of came up. And, you know, this is a rumor that keeps recurring constantly. Is, you know, I think it's always going to be something that's going to be talked about, and that's Jose Sosa. And you know what? I mean, the same thing. I mean, obviously with Sosa, he knows the league, he knows the team, all of that. But if you look at a couple of things, Trabzonspor. No, not just that. You know, if Sosa comes in and he earns 1.2 million a year and he signs a short-term deal, I'd be okay with that, despite the fact that I think he's a dirtbag for the way he left. But I'd be okay with that. But the problem is he makes 3.5 million a year at Trabzon. Even if he cuts his wages, even if he's willing to do that, which probably, given the time pressure here, that puts everything in his favor, so that's probably not even probably wouldn't even happen. I mean, to me, you cannot justify paying that for Sosa. We used to pay him 1.6 a year before we sold him to Milan. Milan then went and gave him a stupid wage, and Trabzon got him in on that same stupid wage. A 33-year-old Jose Sosa, he's not worth that money to me.
No.
And that should definitely not happen unless he's willing to play for half of what he makes now or less.
And in conjunction with that, we should probably mention the even bigger rumor of his teammate with Trabzon, Burak Yilmaz. Speaking of overaged, overpriced salaries.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think it's obvious at this point that Alvaro Negredo isn't going anywhere. We failed to offload him, and honestly, I mean, in the past couple of weeks, he's played 3 games, he scored 3 goals, so for sure, I think he has his place in the team if he's going to stay or stick around. I think we've always said that, you know, if it weren't for his wages, we would like to keep him. His wages are just an issue.
Big issue.
But then there's these rumors with Burak Yilmaz, and Burak is on 4.2 million a year at Trabzon, and add on top of that Trabzon want a transfer fee for him. So I think, first and foremost, anything you pay for Burak is too much. And even if he is willing to take a pay cut, it's going to be too much. He's not going to be playing for 2 million a year. He won't do that. He's not. Is he worth more? I mean, obviously, if he scores 25 goals or something like he did for Trabzon last year. He scored 23 goals despite all of his injuries. And if those goals actually get you somewhere, if it wins you the title, then in hindsight, after the season, you will say, oh, it was totally worth it. But if you don't win anything, you don't go to the Champions League next year, thanks to his goals, then you're just overpaying another striker, whilst you should be putting that money towards a good 10. And, you know, I mean, I'm of the opinion of I'll take Burak as a second striker if the financial, you know, if the economical you know, values of the deal are right, if the conditions are right. Sorry, but that's not going to be the case. That's not going to happen. He is not going to take a 50% pay cut.
And Trabzon will see themselves as a rival, whether they are or not, and will not be giving us any discounts.
Well,
you know,
the latest is that he really desperate, you know, and he's wanted out of Trabzon for a long time. I don't really understand why he signed there to begin with. If you know, because for over 6 months or longer, we've been hearing that Burak wants out. He wants to get away from there. Why did you go there in the first place? You've been there before. You know what it's like. If that lifestyle doesn't suit you, okay, then you shouldn't have signed there. And if it's not a lifestyle, it's a condition of the club, then you're a dumbass for signing there in the first place, because you don't have the excuse that a foreigner has that you're not informed. You should be informed. You should know what's going on there. Exactly. You should know that they're in financial difficulties and that it's a chaotic club for the past 6 or so years. You should know all of that. With all due respect for Trabzon, by the way, I think this is completely solely on the player if he's not happy there. That's his own fault for signing there in the first place. And if he wants to come to Beşiktaş so badly, okay, fine. You know what? Take 2.5 million a year and make sure that we don't have to pay a transfer fee. And then I'm like, okay, fine, go ahead. But if Beşiktaş have to pay even $1 million, that's too much. And the latest is that they want 3.5 for him. Come on, guys. You're paying this guy 4.2 million a year, a wage I am 100% certain you cannot honor. I am 100% certain that Trabzon are behind on payments for his wages. I can almost guarantee you that. Like so basically saying 100% is false, because I can almost guarantee, but I'm like 99% sure that they're struggling severely with paying his wages. And honestly, I think if he's of the mindset of I don't want to be here, then you're not. Why are you even paying that? Plus, I think he still has like 2 or so years left on his contract. To ask for a transfer fee then is a little bit ludicrous, unless this is all part of the plan, because we don't really need a striker, do we? We have Negredo, right? So who needs a striker really badly in Turkey right now?
Galatasaray.
Exactly. So all this hype around Burak Yilmaz has got created in the last 24 hours.
Yeah, we're just trying to bring up the price, Fenerbahce style.
might be a Fenerbahce ploy there. Honestly, I mean, if
I hope so.
if Beşiktaş end up signing him, I think it's financially. I'm not saying sportively it might be good, but financially it will be very reckless of the club, I think. And I think it's been clear this window that we don't have any wiggle room financially. So this would be a complete surplus move if we don't get rid of Negredo. And I might I add, you know, people are like, you know, I prefer Burak over Negredo, blah blah blah blah blah. Burak is going to miss like 10 games
at
or
least
something this season. He has a chronic injury, people. He has a pelvis injury or something. And a friend of mine told me the other day, apparently it's the same injury that Metin Tekin had. And that gets re-aggravated every 5 or 6 games, apparently. Now, I mean, this is, of course, just a friend of mine telling me this.
He's 33 anyway, right? Like,
and he's 33. I mean, his track record over the past couple of years hasn't exactly, in terms of injuries, hasn't exactly disproven what my friend said. Yeah. He is injured every couple of games. Yeah, do you really want to? I mean, if we had a good number 2, you know, then I'd say, okay, you know what, fine, let him come in, and you know, when he's injured, then number 2 can take over. And of course, if Negredo sticks around, that's the case. But then you're paying your two strikers. You're paying your strikers, your two main strikers, and not even counting Love and Laren and all that. Just those two, you're paying them like 8 million euros.
Man.
Is that really something you can afford?
And as a segue, perfect segue actually into the last bit, I think the what does Burak have? 4.5 mil?
He's currently on 4.2 at Trabzon, I believe.
So that 4.2 million is like most of the way towards the salary that Kagawa would be asking for, right? He's asking, I think, supposedly for 5. And let's segue into that. Like, the last thing I wanted to say was that the Shinji Kagawa line has gone very quiet. And one could think that this is because the rumor's dead. Or, I'll just put this out there. My hope is that secretly that's been percolating, and that maybe, for example, he wanted to make sure we were going to the group stage of the Europa League, like that, and that could actually apply to Ljajic too. Anyone who's sort of serious and competitive might want to wait if they know this is going down to the wire anyway, for this result, right? To know that we're going to be in Europe and that they'll have the chance to sort of shine on a platform. So yeah, that was my that continues to be, going into this last 24-hour stretch. That's what I'm hoping for, honestly. But with all this Burak Yilmaz talk, I don't know. So anyway, what's your take on this? What's your news via Kagawa?
Well, there's no news, but my personal take on this, and really the reports from Turkey, from journalists and all that stuff, is kind of like, it's not that Kagawa's off the table, but his economical demands haven't budged, and it's just makes it has probably put that transfer a little bit on the back burner and has made Ljajic the top priority. But the problem with Ljajic is his transfer fee that they want for him. The problem with Kagawa is supposedly what he's asking for personally. Now, the thing with that is, over the past week, we've heard those rumors: Sevilla, Olympique Marseille, offering him a way out of Dortmund. Mm-hmm. But those moves have failed to materialize, and both those clubs are also, as far as I know, in the final 24 hours. Well, almost, because obviously they're on a different time zone than Turkey, 1 hour difference. So they're nearly entering the final 24 hours of their respective transfer windows, as far as I know. It's possible that they have a longer transfer window, because it's different for every country, but largely it's the same for every country as well in Europe. Sometimes you have, like in Turkey, it's been like the 5th of September or the 9th of September. That's happened, but this year in Turkey, the 31st. And to my knowledge, I mean, I haven't really checked this, and I will check it after the podcast. But to my knowledge, I think it's the same in France and in Spain, the 31st. So, yeah. So tomorrow it should close, as far as I know. So yeah, I mean, the longer nothing happens with Kagawa, I think the stronger our chances are, if we haven't signed a 10 yet, that he might still end up, dropping his demands. Because honestly, what's he going to do? He's clearly not in Lucien Favre's plans at Dortmund. Mm-hmm. He's been left out of the team the past couple of matches. They've brought in a lot of quality in the center of midfield. He's not going to be playing there a lot. And he's on 3 million euros a year there. Yeah. So honestly, are you going to just, let your options run out? I mean, if you don't play for 6 months, it's not like your market value is going to increase. It's not like he's suddenly going to get more wages in January if a club comes knocking for him then. If Sevilla and Olympique Marseille doesn't materialize, I think he almost has to drop his demands for Beşiktaş. And of course, there were those reports from Japan, from Nagatomo. Which outlet was that again?
Nikan, I think it was.
Yeah, Nikan Sports, I think, where Nagatomo said, I spoke to Shinji and I told him about Turkey, and I recommended it to him, basically. Yeah. So, I mean, obviously Shinji's been asking around.
Yeah, I was saying that there's the underlying story within that is that it definitely brings some veracity to the general rumors about Shinji Kagawa and Beşiktaş. Whether that means we're in a good state with that now.
So I definitely wouldn't say this is over. I think there's still roughly 24 hours to go. I think he can still change his mind, and I think if the Ljajic deal, or even if the people from our club or if his agent or whatever who have their the fingers on the pulse and they're like, look, we are about to sign this guy. This is your last chance or something like that. Maybe put some pressure on it for him. Because I do think that he's probably first choice still. Mm-hmm. However, at the other point, I think Ljajic is probably despite the fact what yesterday during the training in at Torino, fans stopped his car asking for autographs, pictures, selfies, and they asked him, "What's up with these rumors, man? Are you leaving?" And he said, like, "No, I don't want." I saw we all saw it. I think we all saw the footage probably.
Yeah. And he said, "It's not up to me."
It's not up to me. It's up to the club. Basically, is what he said.
And the club has since said, "It's not up to us. It's up to him."
Their Torino president said that like I think the day before or something, the evening before that, he said like, it's up to the player. So they're both like dodging it. I think completely understandable as a player that you're signing autographs, stuff like that in your car. People are kind of surrounding your car, your Ferrari. What are you gonna say? No, man, I want to get out of this.
See you later. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Now I have to bring the beefs out, Kaan. You're always skirting the line there. Anyway, no. But so that's it. That's all we have to say, though. Like, the speculation then is basically that none of the rumors have officially died, and they're all still alive, except one. And this is actually some news. Finally, I can bring out the news thing. Nasser Chadli.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Gone to Monaco for 12 mil.
He's been waiting on hold for I don't know how many weeks
or months even.
I think it's clear that we had him on hold, so to speak, and that he just felt like, okay, you know what, this is taking way too long. Yeah, he signed on a permanent deal actually with AS Monaco for a reported 12 million euros, according to Belgian sources. So that's a lot of money. I liked Nasser Chadli a lot as a player. I think that a lot of people that followed this rumor a little bit don't have the right information, haven't seen him play as I have seen him play, because I think a recurring opinion that I frequently saw on him was, he's probably versatile and defensively he's probably strong, but I have my questions about his offensive abilities, blah, blah. And to me that just kind of proves that those people probably just watched the World Cup and that's it. Exactly. And they probably never watched him play before that, because Nasser Chadli was an amazing offensive player in the Netherlands, and I think he showed that as well at Tottenham at times, and he's just a great player. I think honestly that had that Babel joined Flamengo, it's very well possible that Chadli would have come in to replace him, and even someone said to me today, I think Babel's better offensively, and you know what, I beg to differ, because we spoke about this the other day on the podcast.
Hey, now let's not rep Monaco players. What are we doing, Kaan?
Okay, you're right. Anyway.
But yeah, that's it. That's all we have to say. And what we have to really say is, like, if you have lucky underwear, put those suckers on. If you have a thing about like showering or not showering, do or don't. You know what I'm saying? Socks, special socks, shirts, whatever the hell it is that you derive any kind of luck from, get that thing out and cradle it like you would your firstborn, because tonight is the night, folks. Tonight is our make or break, do or die moment that we've been building up for this literally the entire existence of this podcast has been transfer season. All 24 episodes, this being the 24th. So, guys, cross your fingers, put your evil eyes up above your doors, whatever the hell it is. Let's get it going.
and by the time this episode hits the airways, we're probably down to the last
Like 6
let's
hours.
say 10 maybe. I'm
Maybe,
hoping you
okay.
get it out sooner. So I'm gonna say like 10 hours. So honestly, I hope that by then we know something, because if we don't,
Yeah, I guess 24
I don't
hours.
have a good
yeah,
feeling
no,
about this.
You're being.
it's
yeah.
they're leaving
It'll
it.
be up soon,
I mean,
guys.
I guess, you know what? I mean, they're leaving it so late, and that's the risk. And I think we're kind of playing with fire, because I don't think Torino are in a position where they feel like they have to sell him.
But Dortmund, on the other hand. But anyway, let's not even do it.
Yeah.
Take us out, Kaan.
Yeah.
Take us out. Let's get onto the transfer wire and see what's going on.
Okay, well, folks, as always, follow us on social media, on Facebook, on Twitter. You can find our Twitter handles in the description for both myself and Sinan. Also for Beşiktaş International and the podcast, of course. Very much appreciated to the people that helped us get to 100 followers on our podcast account, and to the other 4,700 that are following Beşiktaş International and haven't followed the podcast account yet. Get off your couch and click that button.
For
people.
that matter, we've had episodes that have passed 100 too. So there are some listeners out there who are not, if you're not active on Twitter, stop it. Get into the 21st century, Palace, folks.
Create an egg account and just follow.
Just give us the love we need.
No, but it seriously, people, it helps so much. Perception is king, and the perception of the podcast is important. If people perceive the podcast as a bigger deal than it maybe is, at this point at least,
hey, we're a big
it's
deal.
easier to get people. It's easier to get people on. I mean, we've gotten some great guests on the podcast already in terms of journalists, but if you want us to get former players on and stuff like
Or
that,
current ones for that matter. Hey.
or current for that matter, which is tougher, but for sure, if you want us to get people like that on, if you want to hear those interviews in English, stuff like that, really, exposure is important, and a lot of Twitter followers and stuff like that, it really helps. Download, subs, all that stuff, even if you're just download the podcast, listen to it, don't listen to it, preferably listen to
Probably
it.
listen to it.
Give us a follow on Twitter, all that kind of stuff, and that's basically all I have to say. So Sinan, take it out.
Stick around for the hashtag after the beat. And of course, go Beşiktaş into the Europa League. Let's do this.
And come on, Adam Ljajic or Kagawa. Come on, man. Just
Come hashtag come to Beşiktaş.
come to Beşiktaş. I'm done groveling for followers. Now it's all about the number 10. Get live, get Kagawa right in there. Just get those two, please.
Yes. Okay.
Yoldan geldi.
Ladies and gentlemen, I interrupt this hashtag after the beep to report some very important late breaking news. 2 a.m. here in New York City, and the news is just breaking. ADEM Ljajic will be in Istanbul at noon tomorrow, according to the latest. Haber 1903 is reporting it as Özel Haber, which is typically very reliable. And now it looks like we're even starting to get some information about the deal, so it's starting to look very concrete. The most accurate info I've been able to find thus far has him coming in on a 1-year loan for roughly €1.25 million, with the purchase option set at €12 million. I think, next season or next summer. There are also many rumors reporting that perhaps the sell-on fee is only 8 million. So, of course, the numbers in particular are very likely not to be final. And so we'll have to keep our ears to the ground to find out all the details as they come in. So now we have ADEM Ljajic, supposedly. Cross your fingers, let's hope this is all real, but it's looking very much so. But ADEM Ljajic is on a 1-year loan with an option to buy next summer, and we have Loris Karius on a 2-year loan with the option to buy. So we actually have them spaced out well, so that financially these things are looking good. And indeed, it looks like we may have landed our number 10. So for those of you tuning in early this morning in Europe, you're going to be waking up to very good news. Late breaking, once again, ADEM Ljajic looks to be joining Beşiktaş and will arrive in Istanbul this afternoon. Keep those fingers crossed, keep those lucky underwear on. But it's looking good. And we're out here, folks. From the Black Eagles podcast, over and out.
Beşiktaş International hopes you enjoyed this program.